Hello and welcome to Kushti TV, always the straight talking YouTube channel where my specialist subjects are, of course, golf and boxing. But I do delve into other areas of interest, and true crime is one of them. Unlikely romance blossomed between two different characters, charismatic 45-year-old Harry Fuller and a beautiful, well-spoken 27-year-old Nicola Johnson. After a whirlwind romance, to many's disbelief, they were married and everything was going fine and dandy. Yes, Harry Fuller. Harry had a sort of criminal side to him, but it was what I would call an harmless criminality side. You know, you wouldn't get hurt by Harry. He wasn't a person to hurt you. As I say, he could defend himself and hold his own, but he wasn't a person to hurt you. You know, he might clock back the old second-hand car or something like that you purchased off him. It might, as I say, a bit of a Dell boy. It might run with 33,000 miles on the clock when it actually had 333,000 on the clock. Got me? Take a zero off. So Harry was that type of character. On the morning of the 10th of February 1993, the harmless type criminal that, you know, as I said, might just sell you the odd iffy car or something, would meet a criminal at the highest and most evil end of criminality, greed and wickedness. Yes, on the morning of the 10th of February 1993, Barbara and Michael Johnson, the parents of Harry's wife Nicola, continued ringing the phone, and they got a continuation of engaged sound. This was going on for some hours, and to, you know, the slightly fierce, there was nothing to be alarmed about at this stage, but you know, it's just a bit uncanny even to go around and say your phone's off the hook and it's continuously engaged. So a knock on the door and no answer, and then they could peep through and see what would lay ahead. A crime scene. The police were called, and yeah, the most horrendous crime was committed. Harry Fuller undone the door to somebody he knew and trusted, and as Harry had turned his back, he had met a gunshot wound to the back, which sadly pierced his back and through into his heart. So you see Harry as an out there, larger than life character who could hold his own, but this killer was nothing like an Harry, quite the opposite. He was a cowardly killer. He couldn't face Harry at all, not even with a gun. He waited till he turned his back and shot him cowardly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that was absolutely horrendous, and what was about to unfold was even worse. This killer then shot his beautiful young 27-year-old wife into the face, piercing her jaw partially through her mouth, severing some of her tongue. An horrendous thing had happened, and this poor young lady, as poor Harry shot in the back, lay dead. His beautiful wife attempted to alert the authorities by picking up the phone, and yeah, but she was, you know, shot through the face, and she was murmuring, not really making much sense. The phone operator at the other end said that she thought maybe it was a child that had picked up the phone and was blabbering away, because she clearly couldn't make sense of, you know, her efforts to say what was going down. Now this culprit was then ransacking the house for belongings and money, only to come back sometime later and discover that the 27-year-old Nicola Fuller was attempting to alert the authorities to come to the aid of that of her husband and herself. And when the gunman found out these attempts, he cold-bloodedly just shot her to put an end to her life. So there we go, in the most brutal, wickedest way. He didn't face the man, couldn't face the man. Just even in fear of one struggle, Harry would have turned it on him. That was his fear. He's a complete coward. He couldn't face Harry in any shape or form. Shot him in the back. Beautiful young wife. Great times lay ahead of them. And sadly it was all taken away. Her attempts to alert the authorities, as I said, and one gunshot to the face and a further 2 more to end the lives of the beautiful life they potentially, I'm sure they would have had, because he got off swimmingly well. Friends, relatives say they were just happy. It was blossoming. The whirlwind romance was doing wonders. They lived in a lovely little cottage and finances were intact. Harry knew how to make a few quid, and it would have been a wonderful future, I'm sure. But anyway, instead, on this winter morning, 10th of February 1993, the parents have met this devastation of their beautiful daughter and their recent son-in-law. So now, of course, all the heartache, all the hurt, and then comes all the sad news to Harry Fuller's family. So devastating news, and beyond this, of course, we've got to find out who's done this and why. Okay. Well, recently, fairly recently, within 2 or 3 months of meeting their death, Harry and Nicola installed a recording on their phone, and they had zero, absolutely zero knowledge of who would want to hurt Harry, this respected man, and his new wife, who would want to hurt them, and the reason why. So there was very, very little evidence, but this phone recording did yield something. A gentleman by the name of Steve left a voice message, and he said, "I will come to see you tomorrow, 8 AM, and the recorded message said that Harry agreed. So he agreed to see somebody who he knew. But when they went into Harry's phone book, I suppose, as I said, he was a bit of a delver. Maybe it was a Filofax then. Mobile phones were fairly in their infancy, so we still had these big handwritten books, I suppose, and there was numerous, tens and tens of Stevens, you know, probably 50, even 100 Stevens in Harry's phone book, because he was a car dealer, he was a wheeling dealer man, he's a general dealer man basically. He didn't deal anything naughty, he was just a dealing man in cars and so on, property, etc. And yeah, so they couldn't piece together who this Stephen Madden, but we all remember watching Crime Watch, and we still do. The Crime Watch launched an appeal. I think it used to come on at 9 o'clock, was it? 9:30 in the evening, midweek. So when everybody's home, to enhance the chance of somebody coming through with some evidence. And yeah, the voice was played of Stephen, and it was played in quite an exciting, high-pitched, nervy type of voice. But yes, it was recognised to that of Stephen Young, an insurance broker from Tunbridge Wells, fairly nearby. Yes, and so they put the torch on Stephen Young, and some bank CCTV evidence had picked up him entering Harry and Nicola Fuller's cottage. And yeah, so he was prime suspect. Initially in complete denial when confronted with the CCTV evidence, he said he went into the house and found them both dead. And now this is a job for, he was charged with murder, this is a job for judge and jury. Now what's interesting about this, never seen before or since, you may remember this, yes, so just cast your mind back. During the trial, he was acquitted and freed, but due to the circumstance, they wouldn't free him. They actually wouldn't free him from parole. They remanded him in prison for the high risk, but he actually was ordered a retrial. And the reason why, the jury had returned to their hotel, got drunk. It's amazing, really, this, isn't it? They got drunk and done a Ouija board, played the Ouija board. I've never done this thing, but apparently you put a glass on and it goes to a spelling or a name or something. I've heard of it, never done it, no inclination to do it, but yeah, so the jury admitted playing the Ouija board as to who was the killer of Harry and his wife. So absolutely amazing. So the family, everybody had to go out and do it all over again. So the harrowing experience they endured for several weeks. They went through the retrial. Now, Stephen Young, an insurance broker, had a love for guns. He ran a local gun club. He was in serious debt. I knew he was a crook, actually. I knew he was a crook. The reason I knew he was a crook, one of my great uncles, Amos, who's since passed on, he said in the old days, if you didn't have any insurance on a vehicle and you got a pullover, when it was much milder in those days, he would give you a fraudulent, backdated cover note or insurance. So I knew that actually from family that had actually had his corrupt services. You know, these are minor corruptions, but I mean, you know, we knew he was corrupt, and it turned out that he was in serious financial debt and his business was on the edge of bankruptcy. He actually walked into the local butcher. The local butcher's name I can't recall, but hello Richard, for example. You got a few quid in me. So Richard, the butcher, replies, yeah, what do you need, Stephen? 10k. I mean, 10k in 1993 is a lot of money now. That was an awful lot of money then. Yeah, so coupled all this evidence coming forward, as I say, I knew he was corrupt, mildly corrupt, but he didn't know he was evilly corrupt. All this evidence was stacking up towards Stephen Young. His voice recognised, lend a 10k off the butcher, and love for guns. Yeah, went in, met Harry, as I said, all the cowardly bits that go with it, back turned, shot him, shot his wife. The jury seen it the same way as I've explained it. He was found guilty of the two cowardly, horrendous crimes and sentenced to double life for murder, double life imprisonment. Yeah, so sad endings to a very happy start for Harry and his wife Nicola. Before I pay tribute to Harry and Nicola Fuller and their families, all included respectively, allow me to paint my connection with this crime and Harry Fuller. Yes, my connection to Harry Fuller. My mum would often be talking to Tom. So, who's on the phone? Hello mum, how are you? Yeah, I'm just talking to my mum, Tom, from Sussex. This would happen. Hello Tom, I'd shout down the phone, not knowing him. I'm not knowing him at all, but heard much of him, yeah. And this happened several times. And anyway, time moves on. I took a trip to Spain, and I was with my best friend and cousin, late best friend and cousin, Johnny Fagan, who sadly passed just over a year ago due to COVID, and my adopted son, Trevor. We took a trip to Spain for 3-4 days, just a short one it was. And we're in the town of Torremolinos, and Johnny Fagan, my cousin, said, let's go to my niece and nephew's bar. It's a fantastic bar, we'll have some fun. It was formerly owned by the old drag artist, actor, Danny LaRue, yeah. So it was previously his bar, and John's niece and nephew took it over, so we bowled in, I don't know, 8-9 o'clock. You know what Spain's like, bars fairly quiet then and they get going a bit later on. And we're up at the bar, my cousin Johnny Fagan said, here, so there's some fellow Romanis over there, And I went, nah, I don't think they are. He said, yeah, they are, I'm telling you. He said, there's some fellow Romany gypsies over there. I said, I don't think they are, John. He said, yeah, I'm telling you they are. So we got a drink and we moved away from the bar, and it turns out he was right, they were fellow Romanis, and I got chatting to this one fella, and he said, oh, your name and where you're from? I said, I'm from West London, and I'm from Sussex, meaning himself, and okay, and what's your name? I said, well, my name's Joe Smith, and also known as Joe Stockings, and you are? He said, Tom Fuller. Oh, so I said, you're Tom Fuller, my mum's cousin that you talk to on the phone all the time? He says, yes. Oh, that's Tom, your sissy son, how are you? And all that. So we cuddled, embraced. We just had such a good time. But one of the first things I made sure I did was I touched on my sadness for the loss of his brother Harry. So one of the first things I said, oh, you're Harry's brother, sorry. Oh, how horrible that was. So we cuddled, embraced. And we had a memorable night. As I say, the bars were getting warming up at about 10:30. Yeah, they get warmed up about 10:30. It was about 8:30, and we carried on to about 4:30 in the morning. We had a hell of a time. It was a fantastic time. So therefore, Harry is my second cousin. Our grands, Tom and Harry Fuller's gran, Amy, and my gran Mary were two sisters. Although they're quite a bit older than me, they're probably 2.5 decades or so older than me. Yeah, well, we're in the same generation, if you like. Our grands were sisters. And as I say, I didn't meet Harry. I was clearly aware of this horrendous case, but I can tell you now, if he's, and I'm sure he was, if he was half, just anything like Tom, and I'm sure he's all of what Tom is, he was a fantastic, lovely time, gentle person, laugh a minute. So that's my connection with Harry Fuller. We were second cousins who hadn't met, but I had a well of a time with his brother Tom. So that's my connection there, and I'll sign off and I'll say, you know, with all these true crime films, documentaries, podcasts, we have to always remember one thing: the victims. So I'm going to pay my tribute to my cousin Harry and his lovely young wife Nicola, and all the families respectively. I'm going to pray for them and pay tribute to them. I pray for the good Lord Jesus Christ to keep them safely in heaven. Yes, that much I will do. And as for Stephen Young, he's paid his dues in court. He's found guilty. He's sentenced to his time. But we have a judge and a jury, and we have a judge, the good Lord Jesus Christ, and he's got to get past the good man himself yet. So I'm not going to touch any longer on Stephen Young. Enough said about that man, but I will leave you in the loving memory and tribute to my cousin Harry Fuller and his beautiful wife Nicola. Thanks for tuning in.